So welcome everyone to this December Thought Leadership meeting of NHRD Bangalore. My name is Sandhya George. I'm the Secretary for NHRD Bangalore chapter, besides also working with SLO Luxottica. I just wanted to give you a brief intro about the Bangalore chapter before we proceed to the topic of the day. Bangalore chapter has more than 2,000 members. We conduct a lot of events, primarily thought leadership meetings, learning programs, any specific discussions related to specific HR topics. Our primary goal is the learning and growth of the HR fraternity. This month, we also had our annual showcase, which had more than 2,600 registrations with more than 1,000 participants. These participants came from both national and international level, and we had more than different types of sessions, virtual conference, as well as a showcase of best practices. We are also looking at a number of events in the coming year. This month, the December month thought leadership meeting is today, as you all are aware. The coming event for the month of January will begin on 19th Jan. So please look out for all our social media posts and follow us on social media to get more intro as well as information about the various events that we conduct. We are also looking at volunteers. So if you are interested in become a volunteer with NHRD Bangalore, please write to reach us at NHRD Bangalore chapter. With that, I would like to dive into the main topic for today, which is a discussion about the book on which Mr. Ganguly has written for us and has also helped us in the various ways. So for that, we have invited Dr. Krish Shankar as well as Mr. RR Nair. I'm sure all of you have their information, but I'd like to give a brief intro before we begin. Krish Shankar, Group Head of Human Resource Development at Infosys. He's responsible for envisioning employee experience and driving the talent and organization strategy. He has more than 30 years of experience and has led HR functions in organizations like Bharti Airtel, Philips, Hindustan Unilever, and Unilever. In his wide-ranging experience, he has facilitated transformation and capability development. He holds a postgraduate diploma in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur, and also has an executive certificate in strategy and organization from Stanford Graduate School of Business. He's also a doctorate in business administration from Aston University. Besides all this, he's also an author of Catalyst, Power Up Your People Ecosystem. So welcome, Krish Shankar, and looking forward to a great discussion.
Thank you.
I would now like to welcome Mr. RR Nair. He is a gold medalist from Kerala University for his master's degree in industrial psychology, alumni of IIT Kharagpur, where he did his industrial management. He was trained at Tavistock School of Human Relations in UK. He's an alumnus of both Michigan University and Stanford University through their executive education programs. Until recently, he used to support leadership programs held by Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. He had a solid stint with DCM New Delhi, and after which he joined Hindustan Unilever, where he's had a very long innings and has held several senior management positions in all facets of HR. He progressed further, became the CHRO and member of the board for Unilever Group of Companies in India as well as Middle East. Currently, he's a coach for CEOs and CXOs from various industrial sectors, and is also serving in the board of companies of various companies as an independent director as well as on the advisory board. He's actively involved with HR professional development in India and is also a past president of NHRD. He has won the National Award for Outstanding Contribution to the Profession and has also been conferred the Lifetime Achievement Award by CNBC KPMG. With that distinguished career, I would like to now hand over to Mr. RR Nair to introduce Dr. Ganguly and take the discussion forward.
Thank you, Sandhya, for the introduction, and thanks NHRDN for hosting this event. And it's a great joy and a special privilege for both Shankar and me, because we are going to have this privileged conversation with a legend. May I briefly introduce Dr. Ganguly? Now, as you look at this slide, here are the highlights. A science graduate, accomplished from J. College, Mumbai. And throughout his education, he was in Mumbai. He went on to University of Illinois, from where he did his MS and PhD with distinction. He joined Hindustan Unilever in 1962. Up until 1997, he has been associated with both Hindustan Unilever and also Unilever worldwide. From 1980 to 1990, solid 10 years, he was the chairman of Hindustan Unilever, and he joined the global board of Unilever as director for R&D, and that was between 1990 and 97. He has held several positions in the boards of globally acclaimed organizations, including British Airways, ICICI Bank, Mahindra & Mahindra, and Dr. Reddy's Laboratory. He was also non-executive chairman for ICI India, First Solutions, and Anand Basar Group. He was external director and served Reserve Bank of India for 9 years. He was in the Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Committee. He was also in the Prime Minister's Technology Advisory Committee and chairman of the board of IIT Kanpur. He was awarded Padma Bhushan in 1988. He was honored with CBE in 2006, and he was, of course, conferred the most prestigious Padma Vibhushan in 2009. Businessman of the Year, Economic Times Lifetime Achievement Award, and of course, he was also chosen for the University of Illinois International Alumni Award in 2003. Dr. Ganguly is a nominated member of Parliament for Rajya Sabha between the years 2009 and 2015. So you can actually visualize and imagine such an illustrious background of the person with whom we are having this opportunity to dialogue. This book, Afterness, covers 3 broad sections. Dr. Ganguly's early life, especially his childhood reflections, his career in Hindustan Unilever and Unilever, and his participation in public institutions. And we talked about Prime Minister's Scientific Advisory Committee, RBI, and Rajya Sabha. In sum, his professional and public persona so authentically captured in this book. And let me kick off by asking a few questions to Dr. Ganguly. Authors write for different reasons. Some intend it to be an autobiography. Others intend it as a commentary of events in one's life and profession. What prompted you to write this book?
Well, I did not plan to write a book. It has to write various pieces really to compile a history of our family, to convert them at some point into a bound volume for my grandchildren. That was the whole purpose. But I was persuaded by Gopala Krishnan when he read some of my writings. Gopal is the former colleague in Hindustan Lever. He was the vice chairman of the company, then he moved to Tata's, and he's a dear friend, like indeed several of you are. And he persuaded me that I should write a book. And I got persuaded. by his arguments. And therefore it became a book. It was not started as a book, RR. And then the publishers felt that it is worth printing. And so I did not argue with them, very honestly. I was quite pleased. So that's the genesis of Afterness.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you enlighten us the unusual, though thought-provoking title of the book?
I didn't get that. Will you repeat it, Tara?
Can you enlighten us the unusual title of the book? The unusual title.
Sorry, which one?
The title of the book is unusual.
The title of the book. Yeah, the title of the book is not my original word. Many years ago, I can't remember what I was reading, where the term was used very effectively, and it stuck at the back of my mind. I'd forgotten all about it, except when I wrote the book, which I converted into a book only 18 months ago, and I was stuck at home, like all of you, due to COVID. And I said, what is this all about? It is about afterness. After all of it had happened, transpired, and were over. So the great joy of reaching the age I have reached is that one is able to cast one's mind over a lifetime. And through happiness and sorrow at the loss of my better half, and the happiness which was really most part of the life. And thanks to COVID being shut down, or working from home nowadays, as it is called, RR, this idea of the title came to me.
Wonderful. The importance of early childhood experiences, the upbringing that you have actually referred in very, very extensive details. Also, the support that you received from your wife and the daughters. All of these must have helped in developing a deep sense of self-belief. So, Dr. Ganguly, what would be your thoughts on how these early experiences have molded your thoughts and actions as a business leader?
Well, when you look back on the ups and downs of life, especially when you read about my school career and coming out of it, in retrospect, one is not able to change anything. And to put description and logic and reasoning to it is also very tough. That's how life unfolds. And one has to be honest, or not try to paralyze how life unfolded, because one has very little to do with it. There are a lot of forces, both domestic and at the workplace, which make you into the individual which you end up as. And to be pompous about one achievement is the most dishonest thing that one could do.
That's a very, very wonderful and meaningful reflection. Shankar, you have a question.
Yeah. Firstly, Dr. Ganguly, I remember those days in Levers. I joined Levers in '86. I remember the interaction with you early on. So I also enjoyed reading the book. Actually, it's fantastic and it was a wonderful read. I think there was, when I just went through the book, this whole idea about careers, and choices on careers came about. You initially started off with research and you were not very keen to go into manufacturing, but then eventually you moved into manufacturing. So what are your insights, having been through and having seen industry for so long? What are your couple of insights on how do we make some choices on careers, and what would you what would be your kind of words of wisdom to young people who are listening in, who can, looking at their careers?
I'm not a very popular public speaker because I remember addressing a gathering of about 500 young engineers and scientists and others who were still in IITs and IIMs and other places. That was the last time I was invited to talk about leadership. Because I said, if you are preoccupied with leadership in your mind, it is unlikely that you will be ever a leader. Because your future is determined by other people. You have the responsibility of developing the talent and the potential of people who report to you. And if you are preoccupied with yourself, you neither do justice to your job or to the people who are devoting their future under you. So, and that was very unpopular because everybody wants Shazam, that I want to know now. I know of people who used to plot their annual salary increases with their peer groups. And I said, these are the guys who will never go anywhere in life. They're so over anxious about success. But success is not a piece of cake that you can cut and then have a bite. So I'm very unpopular that way. So I'm glad you asked the question, because you become what you become because a lot of other people have made you what you've become. You had it in you, but you're not preoccupied with what you have in you. You have your domestic happiness, you see your children growing up, and you're not, I was quite happy when I got promoted from one job to another. So I was not a tyagi, but I did not hanker or spend sleepless night. What's going to happen to this fellow or that fellow? How do I stand on all that rubbish? Sorry, people may not agree with me and I respect them, but that's my view.
I remember actually going back in time when you were chairman of the company. Once when I raised an issue about what next and how will my career evolve, you clearly told me, don't worry about your career, that we will take care of it. You better mind the careers of the people who work with you. I mean, that's exactly something which you have consistently held as a point of view. I want to switch to some of the challenges that you experienced in your growing up in the company. And first and foremost, the way that you addressed a gun-wielding trade union leader trying to gate crash into the Calcutta factory. Or for that matter, if you were to look at the most unfortunate incident of a technical director visiting your factory in Calcutta, passing away all of a sudden, something which was totally unexpected, or the challenge that you have encountered, and of course I have also been part of that story, with a militant trade union leader, but you harnessed, marshaled all the support in containing that industrial strife in Mumbai. And then following that, the tremendous resilience that you showed to increase the manufacturing capacities in the company by looking at various options and choices. And above all, the challenge of Nirma that it posed at a point of time. So if I were to look at many of the challenges that you have encountered, what are some of the lessons that you have learned that you wish to share with us?
RR, we must give credit where it lies. And when we dealt with trade unions, we had these fantastic industrial relations leaders like Prakash Ram, Basu in Calcutta, Bahadur, Raylan, we had Hindustan Lever, people like you, Tarun Seth. You know, we had a rich scene of leadership who never got the publicity or the exposure that a chairman gets. And it would be totally wrong if you do not pay tributes where they are due and try to say, I did this. Now, mind you, I was not a born sage. I also had the privilege of the predecessors in the role I was playing, like Prakash Tandon, Vasant Radhadaksha, T. Thomas. So I had the privilege of a history of management and leadership. And I never thought of myself as a leader. I always knew that my post is called chairman, and I'm an employee of this company. I'm the top manager. I happen to be the top manager, but never kid yourself that you are a great fellow. You got to, and dispersal of the production, manufacturing. The person who drove it was Prem Chadha. The Nirma thing, it was Sanjay Khosla and Nanda, who were the team leaders, and Shunu Sen was the leaders of the biggest leader of them all. So we must remember that your life was made by teams and leaders, and you happen to be there during that period of time, and you faced everything with these troops that you had, rather than being a Superman or something ridiculous like that. You have to acknowledge that, and that I do with great pride.
Having said that, that reflects your generosity, your spirit. Are there any strong convictions that you developed in facing adversities?
No, I did not. The RR, you know this, you've known him for, both of you have known me for quite a while. The whole point is, be yourself. You don't understand what being yourself is unless you reach the age that I have reached and you're shut in your house due to COVID. Then you say, what happened actually? Or you are sitting, we have a small place in London, you're sitting there on a spring day, the sun is shining, my wife is busy doing something or watching something on television, and you're sitting and you're writing about thoughts that come to you. And you can accuse me of one thing. There are a lot of negative issues, and there are individuals both within the company and outside the company, and you watch during your lifetime machinations and various things going in the public domain. And I thought that would be pure gossip. And I have no connection with gossip whatsoever. When it happened during my time, I was curious. I wanted to know what was going on, but they don't form a part of any character in my personal issues. I think we have to be very clear. I did not run sanitized life. I saw all of it, both on the part of the government and, for example, after independence, the socialism that was followed had the full support of Indian businesses to keep the foreigners out, because then you get a monopoly. But it never became a public issue. You don't think the government got all these ideas, temples of modern India? Panditji knew a lot of businessmen, Gandhiji knew a lot of businessmen, Vallabhbhai Patel knew a lot of businessmen, and they supported socialism because it served also a business purpose. So I haven't got into all that because I did not want the muck to distract from the reality of what my life was all about.
All about purpose-driven.
Yeah.
All about purpose-driven. Shankar?
Yeah, Dr. Ganguly, I think, you've shared some great lessons in leadership, being focused on your team and giving credit to the team. And, now you've grown as a leader over the years. If if you share some insights on what are some of the things that your insights on the role of a leader. What are some things that you think, as many of us are growing in our own leadership, what are some things that we can really learn from you on the role of a leader?
Yeah, I did not think at that time. But when I think back, wherever I went, and after a few months, the people who ran those businesses were very keen, whether it was in the United States or whether it was in Holland, whether it was, anywhere I went, people wanted me to sort of settle down with my wife. And we were not interested. And they were quite, jump in your status and money and all that. So they were not unattractive. But somehow we felt, and it had nothing to do with patriotism and all that. We wanted to get back to India because we were comfortable there. But you knew that they are not giving it to you on a platter. There must be something that they want to get you a green card in the United States, or they want to get you a citizenship in Holland, or they want you to settle down in England. This is not sort of giving you for morning breakfast. There must be something in you, except in my great good fortune in retrospect is that I never got preoccupied with these memories. This all came out when I was sitting down, as I told you, in my flat in London and writing on spring days or summer days. Because that's, I used to pass my time that way after having read all the newspapers and everything. So what next?
Yeah. Good. Now, I want to just shift to another topic. I think, HLL is a very well-respected company, and one of the things that we in HLL really, I think HLL prides itself, HUL now, prides itself is the quality of talent that we should attract and retain and keep great talent. So, I think you played a great role in building that thing in Lever. So what are your reflections on what should companies or leaders do to really make it a kind of a magnet for great talent?
There is a thing called ex-Levers Club. And why should people want to still be having residual, whatever the state of mind, when they wish to keep on contacting? And I don't think they do it to sort of publicize that I was a Leverite one day. But that carries a lot of weight also, I know. I think there is a genuineness there somewhere. I'm not actively involved with that, but I hear about it. Number two is that I read a headline the other day, which RR and you must have also seen in the Times of India or in the Economic Times, that young people now don't want to be classified as stars or A+ or whatever it is. So, and that Hindustan Unilever is going to stop the starring system. For one thing, I did not know that there was a starring system until I had joined the board of Hindustan Lever. And one of our colleagues, Tarun Seth, explained it to me one day. I said, "Huh." But nowadays, I think during feedback and as a motivational tool, possibly RR will understand and you will understand this thing better. The frank appraisal of what is the future and what is the likelihood may be much more open than it was in our days. And therefore, the ambitions of young people today are far wider and greater and universal than possibly it might have been in our days. Therefore, the anxiety, we never thought that we had born in heaven candidates in a company like Hindustan Lever. People outside talked about all that thing, but I think that's a load of rubbish. The one thing that Hindustan Lever had, has, and will continue to have is uncompromising commitment to meritocracy. which nobody, the chairman or Unilever or directors can ever bypass. And therefore, what you are, what you become, is what you deserve, and not the pleasure, displeasure, or subjectiveness of somebody or a group of people in the company. I'm a strong believer in that.
That's beautifully summed up in terms of the uniqueness of
Levers.
There is this reference about not so pleasant experiences that you have had with teachers in school. But your story, when it comes to some inspiring teachers in Jain College, was different. And
I was just not interested in school. But one of the things which I should have brought out is that my mother used to get very upset by my underperformance, and she will say that why can't she do better and all. My father, on the other hand, never, ever either showed any signs or expressed even an iota of unhappiness. He said, he didn't say anything. He was a man of few words. And so, as I grew older, I didn't quite realize until in one of those moods, sitting down to write a chapter, that all he did was to find new teachers to come and give me private tuition, me and my sister. I was just not interested. Now, this transformation, there's a tipping point in everybody's life. And I happened to be very lucky because I had failed once in the metric exam, and then I had to pass in the supplementary. There were not many colleges very sort of interested in me. But my sister was already in Jain College. And I tell you, my transformation took place there because I have never met until then an inspiring group of refugees who had moved after the partition from Sindh into Bombay, Delhi, and everywhere. And the founders of this college, the college was opened only, I think, 3 or 4 years before I joined. The dedication of the teacher to release the competitiveness in every student.
Beautiful.
And then select, for our final year, they selected 6 of us for special training, laboratory training, after college hours, for hours together, because they were called, I don't think because they were called as a Sindhi college. It was a Sindhi college, especially by people in St. Xavier's, Elphinstone, and others. And to capture the ranks and prove otherwise rather than protesting. And our batch, we got, and I was one of them, also rankers, which created a lot of upset of the traditional rankers from St. Xavier's and Elphinstone. So it was entirely the dedication and the ability to bring out the best in you. And you have already had a setback in life by not passing your metric in your first attempt, that you start feeling at a certain age that there is a little bit something that needs to be done. I don't know how it happens. It happens. So I'm very worried about parents who want their children to start behaving as venture capitalists while they should be playing with toys and going to picnics. I worry about them.
I'm so glad that you have reflected and shared these deep insights, especially for our young members of the network. Raising children, this is pretty relevant for them. But equally, I would say, these teachers in Jain College, in a way conveyed positive expectations from you. And in a way, you lived up to their expectations. And not only that, when you went to University of Illinois, there
I think
are
it was a mixture, rather.
Yes.
It was a mixture of, I must have been at a tipping point, reflecting on my terrible school career, combined with the chemistry of inspiring teachers who wanted to build back the institution that they had to leave behind in Karachi, and to start life all over again and have the spirit of succeeding in spite of all the adversity. In retrospect, was a very, very proud lesson.
Dr. Ganguly, could you also reflect on how deeply Dr. Robert Whitney has impacted you? Because you have made quite a few references about him in the book. And this, of course, happened in your Illinois days. And that leads me to a question: what qualities a good mentorship possesses?
Let me give you two examples instead of getting into the whole jing bang law. One summer evening, both of us were walking, and there was a shortcut through the Methodist church near the campus. And so we were walking through the backyard of the campus, which is really the burial ground. And he said, Ashok, do you realize what we are walking through? I said, yes, it's the burial ground of the Methodist church. He said, no. Here lie the people who thought they were indispensable. The second thing is that we had gone, to get a membership of the scientific society called Sigma Xi, you have to have a certain thing. He had recommended my name, and there was a Sigma Xi lecture. And there was the speaker of the day was talking about black holes. He was an astronomer. I said, what will we understand about black holes? And I will tell you, after the 45-minute lecture and a question-answer session, as we were walking out, Bob Whitney asked me, he said, Ashok, what did you think of it? I said, Bob, I'll tell you very clearly. When we were going in, I said, this is going to be 45 minutes of misery. And I've come out at least having a superficial understanding of what black holes are. He said, that's a very important lesson. If you have understood the subject that you think you're a specialist, you should be able to explain it to a lay person with clarity and understanding that he or she can absorb. Doesn't matter what the subject is.
Very
I think, and he was an outstanding. I was very fortunate to have a professor like him. And he was well known as a physical chemist. He was well known at the campus also. And he was going to visit India for the first time to attend our wedding. Unfortunately, he died in a car accident in Florida on a holiday. But sorry, I'm digressing. Please continue.
I think these are wonderful insights. On page 60, you made a special reference to Dr. Robert, Bob as you call him. It's about his saying that he wanted you to discover your own error. This is in connection with some lab experiments that was going on.
Yeah.
Can you amplify that episode, please?
This was a bit complex, but well-known test. And what we used to do when we did not have class, we would come back to our laboratory to continue our experiments. And sometimes we'd work until 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, because I was getting a series of repeating these tests, I was getting them wrong. And next morning, I would then sit with Bob, he would look at my lab notebook, and he said, very interesting. And one day he told me, he said, Ashok, when you come across why it is not reproducible, and you find it out, doesn't matter what time of the day or night, just call me. And I've written about it that I had this eureka moment of the mistake, some silly mistake I was making at 2 in the morning. And I called him. I said, I found it. He said, yes, I'll be there in 10 minutes. He must have been in the very deep sleep. In 10 minutes, he came totally fresh. He had taken a shower. And he bought, in those days, we did not know, by the way, smoking was connected with cancer. And we used to, I was not a big smoker because it was expensive. I used to smoke a pipe. But he bought a packet of 10 of Kent cigarettes. And he said, this is it. I would have never told you where you were going wrong unless you found it yourself. That's what research is all about.
Wonderful.
Sorry.
A quick question, how did you give up cigarettes and pipes?
No, I gave up smoking. I smoked for a long time, as you know, RR. I used to smoke for a very long time. I gave it up in Calcutta after my daughter was born. Difficult.
Some important moments in life helps you to take the right decision. Yeah. There is this discussion Shankar and I were having, especially post-COVID. There is a lot of discussion in the HR world on empathy and the importance of empathy.
Sorry, repeat.
Importance of empathy. Empathy. And we believe, both of us were discussing, that there are two kinds of empathy: the unconditional empathy and the conditional empathy. The latter, which is conditional empathy, requires a person to also resort to demanding leadership. So how to become a demanding leader combined with empathy is a question we want to pose to you, because I am sure that you have a point of view on this.
You know, I will have to express ignorance. But let me put it another way. I believe in the empathy. But if a leader does not have it and is only demanding, then it becomes a problem. My experience, I didn't think about it, but now that you raised the question, my experience says you are the way you are. You have learned a few lessons from your predecessors. Some good colleagues, not necessarily on the board, may have whispered to you about certain issues, and you respect them. That's why they feel they have the right to whisper into your ears, and you do something about it. So I think one need not be preoccupied, but with empathy, because there are factors around which you attract to yourself, who tell you when you're going wrong. Your predecessors have shown the way, but you did not know whether they had the empathy. They must have had the empathy. I was not conscious about it, but I respected people who came and whispered to me when I had done something wrong or was going to take a wrong decision. And if you respected them, you listened to them very carefully.
Beautiful, beautiful. In a way, I think there is a reference to tough empathy. Tough empathy. And I think that's a paradox, but if practiced effectively, that is an added value for an effective leader, is what we are hearing. Turning to a couple of more questions, because we have quite a few questions coming into the chat box.
Yeah. Should I go with the first one? I think, Dr. Ganguly, here's the question. I think Akhil Busra has asked this question. in terms of how do you motivate people in your team when each one was a star and you've got great stars there, but how do you motivate them is the question.
You don't see, you have to be natural. You have to be natural. Either you're both, well, sometimes you're feared, but mostly you are respected. And don't change that. And people watch you both under you and above you. You're not an isolated island. And some people will give you feedback, certainly seniors would, and some young fellows are bold enough to say, sir, I think you're wrong. And I respect them. And so if somebody has it in him to be able to come and say that you're wrong, you must respect them. And not shout, he said, who the hell you are? And then if you don't feel that you're wrong, you have to take the time and have the patience to explain to the person why you did a certain thing. He may or may not be convinced, but you should spend the time if you think this is a person with potential. No, with everybody, not only people with potential. With everyone, you have to have the courtesy. I used to visit the factory when I was a production manager and all that. I'd go on surprise night visits. Not to catch people sleeping or anything, but to learn, chat to people, go with the foreman to the canteen, have an omelette and a cup of tea, and chat about his family and all. I had no great scheme. That's the way I was. That we are always talking about production and increased production, this and that. That's it. After I've taken my round and all, I'll ask one of 2 or 3 of them. I said, come on, let's go and have a cup of tea. And I'm feeling a bit hungry also. We go to the workers' canteen. And it became a normal sight. It became a normal sight. So, every person is different. You cannot plot and plan anything. You must be happy with yourself, and you must be happy to listen to both criticism and praise. Or you must be wise enough. I won't say happy. You must be wise enough. People you respect.
I think, yes, in essence, Dr. Ganguly, what you were saying is look for the uniqueness of each individual and make connections with them. And I think what we have observed, and the book is full of illustrations about your ability to nurture and sustain relationships.
RR, I did not want to pontificate. I said, this is the way life was. And you cannot have absolute happiness. If you have absolute unhappiness, then you're finished. And my greatest strength was that I had a fantastically happy family life. My wife, who was neither seen very much or heard at all, maintained the domestic happiness and tranquility, given our long hours and all the travel and all that, and brought up my daughters, their schooling and everything, and always welcomed guests. A lot of politicians used to come and visit and all that. And we had a very, very happy life. I looked after my parents. So the domestic happiness has a overwhelming weightage in the blossoming of your own personality in the public space.
Those aspects of your experience are so beautifully illustrated in the book. And I would urge those who are in this meet, not only to take a look at it, but have some deep conversations around some of the observations and experiences Dr. Ganguly has shared with us through the book. Couple of more questions from my end before Shankar will pick up more questions from the chat box. One has to do with your duration of association with Rajya Sabha as a member of parliament. One of the things that we are wonderstruck is the importance you attach to utilization of development funds and the amount of effort you put in to check on the impact of those funds that were spent. Many of our senior HR professionals are also associated with CSR activities. So what are your reflections about the impact of what we do for communities and for societies? Any reflections and comments?
See, I was associated with the government after the emergency. There was a Janta government. And then Mr. Gandhi came back to power. And I was introduced to into the government by Nihal Kaviratne's wife's aunt, Mrs. Jayakar, Pupul Jayakar. We got to know each other, and she must have spoken to Mrs. Gandhi or whatever. And I got associated with the CSIR, and eventually from the main scientific small committee, which was chaired by Mrs. Gandhi, from 1982 onwards. Then she was assassinated. With Rajiv Gandhi, my interaction started when he was a pilot. And I used to fly to Jammu via Chandigarh. And when he went to Chandigarh, he got down. There used to be a chap in a steel vessel carrying coffee and plastic cups. So everybody used to get down, the staffs used to get down, the pilots used to get down, the passengers used to get down. And many of us used to buy that 5 rupees, I think, those days coffee. And then the second time we met, first time we said hello, the second time we got chatting. So we did not, I never knew that he was going to be the Prime Minister one day. The fact of the matter is that Prakash Tandon had laid the foundation. The multinationals were considered as the dregs of colonialism, which had to be moved. And Prakash Tandon formulated a basic issue that we must know what is going on in the government's mind. And the government must know how we run our business. He started it. And Rajadaksha inherited it. Thomas inherited it from Rajadaksha. I inherited from Mr. Thomas. And so the preoccupation with Delhi is to make sure there is no misconception or misinterpretation. And therefore, after Rajiv Gandhi had to live, Sanjay Gandhi died in the air crash. And Rajiv Gandhi became, we happened to know each other, and he happened to be a former classmate in Doon School of Shunu Sen. So it all combined together. I had no personal sort of initiative to meet. I had to meet politicians and civil servants. But that it would develop into more than knowing was something that happened subsequently. And he was hugely modernizing mind. And I watched from close quarters. In an evening party one day, the civil servant told me, he says, it doesn't matter who comes through power. We serve the government of the day. And somebody standing close to us whispered, sort of Hosei, as long as it protects the interest of the nation.
Perfectly said, Doctor. There is just one related question, which is the development funds that you utilized while being a member of Rajya Sabha. Any comments as to how you ensured that this was deployed well?
See, being called to join the government or become something, everybody faces in a senior position. I knew from day one that I'll be a total failure in politics. Why that wisdom deserted me when I was persuaded to join the Rajya Sabha as a nominated member is one of my failures in life. And if you say you have life without any failures, my school record is there, and my end of my life record is there. But I think I've spoken much more than I had intended.
Shankar, question from the chat box.
Yeah. Sorry, a couple of quick questions we'll take. I think there's one question.
No, I'm very happy to answer any question. And people are free to write to me if they had any questions also. That's
Yeah,
all.
I think I'll take different types of questions. There's one question on how do we, you've had a very successful, what we call as life after you've retired from Unilever, in a way, in terms of, so there's a question that people have asked, how does one plan a second career in terms of, after you work for 30, 40 years, what kind of things should they keep in mind? Any thoughts on that?
See, how should I put it? One should not plan. But things happen in a certain way. For my association with British Airways, for example, even before I retired from Unilever, they invited me to be an independent director because the Cadbury committee issue was then hotting up in England. And there were a number of independent directors. And then I spent 10 years on the board there, 9 years. And then other things come along. I think you carry a halo for a certain period of time when many people want you to pick your brains and your style. And you must be very selective what you will enjoy and you feel you can contribute to also. If you make a mistake, you should admit yourself and after one term withdraw yourself. If you're enjoying something, then I'm glad the government also has put a limit to how long you can be a board member. So things happen that way. And then gradually the halo dims and you must not regret it. But that's the way life is. And then you have this free time to have these holidays and then nobody decides between the two very close people who have spent so many decades of their life, who will go first. I always used to feel that I was much older to my wife, and I'll go first and I have to prepare files of our accounts, income tax, pension, and everything in preparation for my departure. But she departed before me. So don't plan anything also too much. Sorry, I've sort of strayed a little bit, but
yeah, no, it's a fair point.
Another question that keeps coming up is how come Indians who are born and brought up in India have done exceptionally well as global CEOs?
As global CEO, God bless them. God bless them. I had a job as a university assistant professor, because I'd come for a holiday. I had not seen my parents for 6 years. I'd come to see them. That I decided not to go back, but I was very keen to go back to academics. But all my contemporaries in the United States have all done well. But every time we get together and have a meal or a drink together, they feel that, how did you take the right decision? So I said, I could never make as much money as you guys have done. But he said, none of us really achieved what you achieved in India, a public prominence for a certain time in a country of 1 billion people at that time. I said, this is all not planned. I stayed back for a completely different reason. I was not a pseudo-patriot. So, who knows what life plans for you? Yes, they're brilliant. They're all brilliant people. Absolutely outstanding.
Shankar.
Yeah. I think Dr. Ganguly, here's another question. Peter Selvaraj is asking this. You know, did you have to change your leadership style at different points consciously, or was it just natural?
You respond to the environment. You have some innate strengths and weaknesses. And as you go up in rank and responsibility, you understand what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And then you try to improve your weaknesses because you cannot do it yourself. You seek the help of your colleagues and say that I need your advice on such and such a thing. You don't suddenly become pompous that I know everything. So I think you must not be pompous. You must not seem to be all-knowing, because none of us is all-knowing. And you must respect your colleagues who are superior to you in certain areas and actively seek their help and collaboration in order to deal with complex issues.
I think throughout you have emphasized to be genuine, understand the context, use your style which is appropriate, also taking into account the skills, competencies of your colleagues, because you have always admired and accepted that one cannot do everything oneself. None of us are as smart as all of us.
RR, you have to be honest to yourself. If you are delusional, then you are walking into a pit. And there are examples strewn all over history of delusional leaders. And nothing, I was not very clever. This has to come naturally, and all this wisdom is after the fact. There is no ready formula. You must internally accept what are your strengths and what areas you don't know, and who you seek help from. That does not demean you, that makes you a better person.
Beautiful. Shankar.
Yeah, I think there's one other question. How do you deal with difficult or toxic employees or toxic people in your team?
Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, the question was, how do you deal with difficult people or people who are toxic who are there in your team?
I see toxicity reduces with age because it has such a negative influence on life. Unless you're an absolutely stupid individual, you will know that there's a lot of things in me that is creating all the problems that I'm facing. If you don't understand that, you end up life with deep frustration and unhappiness, which very sadly is visited upon a totally innocent family and destroys the family life also. So it is, but it is a major issue that we don't talk about. It's a major issue that you don't talk about. And the best thing is that you can advise, and people are ready to listen to you and do something about it. Then it helps. If you're convinced that you cannot do anything wrong, you are heading for failure. Whatever little experience I have, that's my experience.
Yeah.
One of the things that you referred about your stint in RBI was that you were deeply impressed with the quality and professionalism of managers in RBI. And you felt that good HR practices were adopted by RBI.
Okay.
Can you help us highlight some of the observations?
The point is this. I think meritocracy is very difficult to reward in the government system where there is a hierarchy of rights. RBI was established in 1935. And somebody in the British India government had the wisdom of not locating it in Delhi. It was located in the business district of Mumbai so that it can be close to the business relationship and what's happening in the market, which Delhi is far removed from. And therefore, it's a matter of luck. So I've written about it, that why can't more departments be away from Delhi? Why has everybody to stick with Delhi? But I won't be very popular because of that. You know, I've written about the incident of a cabinet secretary who was a personal friend of mine. And we used to spend a lot of time together. And he asked me, he said, Ashok, how long will you sell soap? You have read about it? I said, sir, as long as you take a bath in the morning, I will sell soap. Because they are brilliant people, without exception. Those who become secretaries and senior bureaucrats are brilliant, but they're so insulated from realities, in spite of the fact that they start at the district and the taluk level. It's amazing how success and power fogs your experience. And once you get to Delhi, it sort of overtakes you. And there's an issue there, with every government had to face. I do not know how things are today. I'm out of touch with what is happening today. But it would be very difficult to change that mental state. Brilliant people, then getting close to power.
Insightful.
Yeah.
Krish.
I think just one last question as we kind of wind it up, Dr. Ganguly. I think this question, I don't know, it's a very philosophical question. And somebody has asked, what's the purpose of life? From what you see. So
very good, very, very good question. You know that I've had the privilege of being stuck at home in unhappiness and loss of my better half. Then I ask myself the same question, what is life? It's just a great thing that you don't realize unless you are in a situation that I found myself. That how fortunate I am to be able to cast my mind as to what was life all about. And life was about you're being born of parents, you carry certain genes, and you die as a parent and grandparent. There is something superhuman or something extraordinary that we pretend we know what we don't, that keeps this cycle going. Therefore, there are forces which have dictated your life until you pass on. And what you claim as your achievement, your love, your affection, are all really Maya in a way. It happened, mine was an arranged marriage which became such a happy life. It can happen with love marriage, the family, how children grow up. And then you said that maybe this is the purpose for which I was born. And I've been given this life. Either it's a happy ending or I can be bitter that why couldn't it be better? But there is no choice. This is what you are presented. This is what you made of it. It's a very good question.
And
Thank
Dr. Ganguly, your sentiments on this topic about the purpose in life and how family and your parents have shaped and influenced your character, I think is a very dominant theme in this entire book that we all have read. Afterness truly represents the character and the values that you represent.
See, this is very important because the title itself is in a manner of speaking that if you knew all of these things were going to happen as you moved on, I think it would have been very disappointing.
Life has to evolve and unfold itself, as you have said.
It does. Whether we want it or not, that's the way life. I can tell you, I'm in my 88th year. Life unfolds. And don't be preoccupied with it. Let it unfold. There's very little you and I can do about it.
I'm tempted to ask one other question which sometimes comes up, which is about building a customer-centric culture. I remember the days when, Dr. Ganguly, you enjoyed visiting the market, visiting the dealers, our stockists, visiting outlets. In what way this has promoted the culture of customer centricity in our company?
RR, I loved meeting people. And it served a business purpose. Because I don't know whether you know it, that in many places where the picture I was getting in the head office and the picture I was seeing, I would ask the person, area sales manager, whoever, I said, would you mind if I have a cup of tea with our stockist by myself? And then the stockist would open his heart and talk about the realities of the marketplace, what the customer feedback is, which could be, at many instances, a slight variation, what the head office wants to hear. And I would immediately after that share it with whomever I'm on tour with. And not as an accusation, but I think that I should tell them, I said, you have to encourage. Sit down and have a cup of tea sometimes. We are all barasas, but they are also our lifeblood. Sit, listen to what they have to say. You may or may not agree, but listen. Hear them. So there's liking people. I mean, I enjoy meeting people. So and that was something I inherited also. Tandon, Raja Daksha Thomas, there was a practice. That was a custom in the company. So no great initiative or originality.
Shankar has already said last question. Allow me to ask one last question for all.
No.
How do you see India by 2047? More about your vision rather than your forecast.
See, India is progressing, India will progress. Even if we deny that past nothing happened, a lot of things happened. So the freedom struggle, the tragedy of partition, lot of things have happened. But a lot of things remain to happen. It is not only what we do in India, but what happens in the rest of the world. I have one major worry. I'm glad you asked the question. I'm getting more and more the feeling that the climate change is something that my succeeding generations are avoiding facing up to it. I'm saying it's too costly, it is too complex. Let us do a little bit here, let us do a little bit there, but let the next generation start worrying about it. And nobody's getting up and saying that the leaders are naked. So whether we will be overtaken by climate calamity while we are making this progress, for our future generations to prosper better and poverty to be driven out, or whether we will be killed and humankind will disappear 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is. And this great journey that is taken to make India the third largest economy or the second largest economy. Well, I'm afraid if climate change is not faced by the present generation, everybody is passing the buck, will there be a future? Sorry, I did not want to end on that note. I'm optimistic that somebody is going to break the egg and say that we are not doing enough. Our generation is responsible. I'm hoping, because we all live on hope. I hope that the calamity of the universe does not await our future generations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you very much. I thank those who are in your audience. You two have raised great questions, and I'm very grateful to your organization.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think on behalf of NHRD, on behalf of everybody, RR and myself, thank you for your time. We really enjoyed reading the book. I mean, I know it was a fantastic read. I'm sure many more will read and benefit a lot from it. Thank you all. And to all those, for those who want to understand more about what NHRD is doing, and if you want to know about the various events, follow NHRD on their social media, on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you'll get to know what's happening. Yeah. So I think they share lots of insights from leaders, the latest thing that's happening in HR. And it's good for us to meet once in a way to learn from many other people. So thank you all for your time and best wishes. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr.
And thanks to Gopalakrishnan.
I know. Thanks, Gopal.
A lot of us have to thank you. Thank
Okay.
you. Privilege.
Thank you. Bye. Good night. Thank you all for joining.
Thank
Okay.
you all.